Hello everyone, this movie is A Dangerous Method, 2011, August 17th, 1904. Sabina Spielrein, a Russian Jewish woman suffering from the final stage of hysteria, is brought to a psychiatric hospital. There she meets Carl Gustav Jung, a young and talented psychiatrist who deeply admires the work of Sigmund Freud. Inspired by his idol, Jung decides to try one of Freud's methods, treating patients through long, open, and honest conversations. During their first meeting, Sabina confesses that she cannot control her own body. She has suffered constant violence, and in her disturbing dreams, she sees her father's hand. Jung later shares his first impressions of the new patient with his wife, Emma, but all she can think about is her next pregnancy and her hope to give birth to a boy. At their second meeting, Sabina opens up about her dreams and the strange events that seem to follow her in real life. Jung does not believe in coincidences and is drawn to mystical ideas, but when Sabina suddenly throws off her cloak, he reacts with caution. He helps her pick it up, but even this small gesture frightens her. A few days later, Jung leaves on a business trip. Without him, Sabina begins to fall apart, playing with food and rolling in mud just to get the attention of the hospital staff. The director has no choice but to give her a cold bath, which finally calms her down. When Jung returns, he visits Sabina and offers to continue working with her. His wife, Emma, agrees to help by assisting with a psychological test, answering word association questions. During the test, Sabina shows remarkable talent and a deep interest in psychiatry. She easily builds a psychological portrait of Emma and figures out that she is Jung's wife. A few weeks later, Emma gives birth to a daughter and apologizes to her husband for not being able to give him a son. She is extremely wealthy and provides Jung with everything he could want, but the one thing she cannot give him weighs heavily on their marriage. As their sessions continue, Sabina opens up about more of her strange dreams and the mysterious figures that appear in them. She also makes a deeply personal confession that physical punishment has always stirred something inside her. From a young age, she felt a strange pleasure from pain and found herself doing things just to feel it again. 2 years later, Jung travels to Austria to finally meet Freud in person. He tells the famous doctor about Sabina's fascinating case and receives valuable advice. However, Jung begins to notice a key difference in their thinking. Freud interprets every case through a sexual lens, while Jung believes people are driven by far more: fear, anger, longing, and other emotions that cannot all be traced back to desire. That evening, Jung shares his personal secrets and dreams with Freud, but Freud reduces everything to a logical explanation, insisting it is the only correct way to see things. Later, Jung shares these same thoughts with Sabina, and she seems to be the only one who truly understands him. She is no longer his patient. She is now studying at university to become a psychologist, and she has a brilliant future ahead of her. Jung deeply values her perspective. Sabina believes that not everything can be reduced to a single cause. She tells him about a dream that later came true in his real life, and this only strengthens Jung's belief that coincidences can carry a deeper, almost mystical meaning. Freud then writes a letter to Jung asking him to treat his first student, Otto Gross. Otto was once a gifted specialist, but he has lost himself completely. All he thinks and talks about is pleasure and his many lovers. He has seduced patients without any remorse, and he even suggests that Jung do the same with Sabina. At their next session, Sabina tells Jung that she feels she cannot be a good psychologist. She kisses him and asks him to come back whenever he wants to continue their close connection. A few days later, Jung consults with Otto, unsure whether he should cross the line of medical ethics. Otto has no doubts. He believes that with someone like Sabina, time should not be wasted on psychology alone. Shortly after, Otto solves his own problems his own way, getting involved with a nurse before stealing a ladder and escaping from the clinic entirely. Taking Otto's words to heart, Jung begins visiting Sabina outside of their sessions. Sabina has certain desires that make their time together more intense and complicated. Years pass. The Jung family moves into a new country house. Emma, who cannot imagine life without her husband, gifts him a yacht with red sails. She suspects that Jung has a mistress, but she is willing to look the other way to keep the family together. These words strike Jung deeply and stir his conscience. He decides to end things with Sabina. Sabina humiliates herself just to stay close to him, willing to let him be harsh and cold toward her if it means she can remain in his life. But Jung holds firm. Sometime later, Jung and Freud meet again to exchange ideas. Freud holds tightly to his belief that all mental problems come from past experiences and how a person makes sense of them. Jung, however, is moving in a very different direction. He pays close attention to small details, dreams, and patterns, increasingly convinced that what seems like a coincidence is actually something the mind has not yet understood. He believes that psychology cannot be built on one idea alone. Freud, afraid that bold new theories will make him a joke in the scientific world, is not willing to take that risk. Their relationship begins to crack. Frustrated after yet another argument with Freud, Jung takes his anger out on Sabina, and she allows it, willing to absorb whatever he gives her. Shortly after, Jung and Freud attempt to move past their differences by working together on a new patient and agreeing on a diagnosis. But during a yacht trip, Freud reveals that he received a letter claiming Jung has been involved with his patient. Jung denies it, and then breaks things off with Sabina completely, afraid of being exposed and ruining his career. A few days later, the truth comes out. The letters sent to Freud and to Sabina's parents were written by Emma herself. She had done it to protect her marriage and keep her husband close. Soon, Sabina returns to Jung, but this time as a fellow psychologist seeking help. Her parents have caused a scandal, convinced that their daughter is still unwell, so the sessions must continue. After paying for her appointment, Sabina begins sharing the details of her private meetings with Jung, directly with Freud. Freud, however, is not interested in getting involved in Jung's personal problems, and asks that the matter be handled through letters only. Sabina receives a cold and sharp reply, and realizes she must accept that her connection with Jung is truly over. Sometime later, Sabina begs Jung to write to Freud honestly so that she can officially become Freud's patient. Jung and Freud then travel together to America to spread their ideas to new audiences. Along the way, Jung continues sharing his strange and vivid dreams, pushing Freud to be equally open in return. But Freud refuses, too afraid of damaging his image, and the tension between them explodes into a serious argument. Jung no longer sees Freud as a teacher or a source of inspiration. Their views on the human mind are simply too different. By 1910, Sabina has graduated and become an outstanding psychologist. She is now confident that Freud's theories are not just incomplete, they are full of contradictions. She is ready to look at people's problems from a completely fresh angle, one that threatens Freud's entire reputation. According to Sabina, relationships do not only lead to self-destruction or ego protection, they can also give birth to something far more beautiful than the individual self. Jung listens, deeply fascinated. Not long after, Sabina ends her marriage and returns to Austria. In 1912, she meets Freud and challenges his entire way of thinking. Shortly after, Jung does the same. The confrontation hits Freud so hard that he collapses to the floor, nearly losing consciousness. Through letters, the arguments between Freud and Jung grow even more bitter. Their worldviews and approaches to psychology have become completely incompatible. A year later, a now pregnant Sabina visits Jung's home and meets his wife. Jung is genuinely happy to see that she has built a family, but deep down, he feels a quiet sadness. She was the only woman he truly loved, and he knows the child she is carrying will never be his. During their conversation, Jung describes a terrifying dream, a bloody avalanche sweeping across all of Europe. Sabina does not fully understand what it means, though she senses something mystical in it. She soon leaves for Russia. In 1914, the First World War begins. Otto died of starvation in Berlin. In 1919, Freud was forced out of Vienna by the Nazis. He died of cancer in London in 1939. Sabina returned to her homeland, where she was killed by the Nazis as a Jewish woman in 1941. Jung went on to become one of the most respected psychologists in the world. He lived until 1961, and that is the end of the movie. That's all for today. Subscribe and like if you want more videos like this.